When Speaker Mike Johnson accused Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of corruption live on national TV, she didn't raise her voice, she didn't need to, she waited. She listened. And then, she hit back, with a $100 million lawsuit that's now sending shockwaves through Washington. You wanna repeat that? Her voice was steady. Clear. Unmoved. The Oversight Committee chamber went still. You could hear the rustle of paper. The nervous cough of a junior staffer in the back. Everyone knew something had just shifted, everyone except, perhaps, Speaker Mike Johnson, still looking smug, arms folded, half smirking like he'd scored points in a political game he thought he controlled. I said what I said, he muttered into the mic. If the Congresswoman has something to hide, that's her problem. That's when phones lit up across the room. Reporters hit record. Staffers started texting. No one cared about the rest of the budget hearing, it had just been hijacked, this wasn't a slip of the tongue. Johnson had looked directly at Crockett and accused her of receiving questionable campaign donations from out-of-state groups motivated by profit, not policy. He let the word questionable hang in the air, long enough to stick. Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned forward, slow and deliberate. Mr. Speaker, she said, unless you came with receipts, and I know you didn't, I suggest you retract that. Before this becomes something you can't walk back. The tension in the room was thick. This wasn't just political theater anymore. This was personal, and millions were watching it unfold in real time. Live feeds were clipped and shared before the hearing even ended. Within minutes, a 38-second video of the exchange hit Twitter. The caption read, "Things just got personal. Speaker Johnson accuses Representative Crockett of unethical donations," on live TV. Hashtag Crockett vs. Johnson began trending within 3 minutes at first. It was Capitol Hill watchers and policy wonks. Then Black Twitter picked it up. Political commentators across the spectrum weighed in. But the line that went viral wasn't Johnson's accusation, it was Jasmine's response. I've never been accused of something that cheap, that flimsy, and that reckless, by someone who should know better. One user wrote, "This is how you respond. Calm. Legal. Surgical." TikTokers stitched it. YouTubers reacted to it. Even veteran and educator pages on Facebook shared the clip with captions like, "This woman doesn't flinch." The public's response wasn't just admiration. It was outrage. People demanded answers. What was Johnson talking about? What were these questionable donations? No one could find anything. Crockett's campaign filings were public. Her donors were transparent. There were no shady PACs. No hidden money. No quiet dinners in Aspen. Just a clean paper trail, and still, her office said nothing. No press statement. No tweet. Just silence, intentional silence. That night, CNN ran the clip 3 times during prime time. MSNBC pulled up Crockett's past legal highlights, moments where she coolly dismantled police union reps during civil rights hearings. "This woman doesn't rattle," Joy Reid said. "She prepares." Over on Fox News, the tone was different. One pundit called it a political stunt. Another accused her of playing the victim. But even there, a panelist pushed back. Wait, accusing someone of criminal conduct on a live mic, with no proof? That's dangerous. Online, the conspiracy machine went into overdrive. False rumors swirled, claims that Crockett had ties to crypto lobbyists. It was baseless. Fact-checkers debunked it in hours. But the damage was done. Crockett's office received over 2,000 emails in a single day. Some were supportive. Many were vile. Racial slurs. Threats. Personal attacks. Her district office in Dallas increased security. Several staffers were told to work from home, and still, no response from Jasmine. Then, Thursday morning, her chief of staff, Marcus Little, called an emergency team meeting. Phones ringing. Reporters at the door, "Let them bark," he said. "She's not giving them a headline. She's giving them a lawsuit." The room went quiet, That was the first time anyone said the word out loud, lawsuit. From that moment on, the tone shifted. This wasn't going to be settled in press releases or cable news spin cycles. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just defending her name, she was coming for justice. On her terms. With the law, and Washington? Washington had just been put on notice. This wasn't staying in the headlines. The IT was going to court. Behind the scenes, Jasmine Crockett had already contacted 2 civil litigation attorneys out of Austin, both with strong federal trial records. No cameras. No grandstanding. They didn't need noise. They needed facts. Meanwhile, Mike Johnson did the opposite. That same Thursday, he appeared on a right-wing podcast out of Nashville. When asked about the hearing, he doubled down. Look, I call it like I see it. If Representative Crockett doesn't want people digging into her finances, maybe she should rethink how she raises money. No clarification. No retreat. Just fuel on the fire, and in that moment, Johnson made a serious misstep, because outside the Capitol chambers, there's no immunity. He had taken a baseless accusation and repeated it in public, as part of his political campaign. Crockett's legal team took note, and they were already building a case, but the fallout wasn't just political. It was personal. Crockett had been underestimated before, long before Congress, cameras, and crisp blazers. Back in Jefferson County, Texas, she was a young black lawyer trying felony cases in courtrooms where no one looked like her. She wasn't loud. She didn't play to the gallery. She just won. Now, in her D.C. office, behind a thick walnut desk, she stared at a yellow legal pad. No laptop. Just black ink and a few sharp words scrawled in the margin. Intent. Pattern. Proof of harm. That on speakerphone was Shauna Edmonds, a trusted friend and former co-counsel from a wrongful conviction case they'd worked in Beaumont years ago. You good? Shauna asked softly. I'm mad, Jasmine said. But I'm focused. Shauna didn't miss a beat. Then he's in trouble. Jasmine didn't laugh. She turned the page. Back in law school, she wasn't the student constantly raising her hand, she was the one dissecting every argument in silence, until she had it cornered. That discipline made her lethal in court. Easy to underestimate, but never twice, and Mike Johnson had made the mistake of doing it once. That he had accused her of criminal behavior, live, with zero evidence. And she knew exactly how to dismantle that in front of a judge. Still, the personal toll hit hard that night. She called her mother in Texarkana. Baby, do you need me to come up there? Her mother asked, her voice cracking. I'm okay. Mama. You don't sound okay. I'm focused. He's not going to get away with it. Her mother paused. You know they're gonna dig, right? Past cases, school papers, old roommates, exes. I know, Jasmine replied. Let them. She was used to smear campaigns. Every black woman in public office expects them. But this? This wasn't whispers. This was a megaphone, and it came from the Speaker of the House. Her team could feel the shift. She canceled a fundraiser in Sacramento. Declined every media appearance, even friendly ones. Told her comms director to go dark. Instead, she went full legal, printing emails, highlighting transcripts, archiving every tweet and quote Johnson had made since the hearing. They weren't just building a case, they were building intent. But it's not defamation just because someone's rude. You have to prove malice, that they knew it was false, or didn't care. And Johnson, with that podcast, had just handed them a gift. Shauna sent over 6 possible legal routes. Jasmine circled 2 words in black ink: false light. Defamation per se, because calling a sitting congresswoman corrupt, with no evidence, wasn't speech. It was slander, but threats were piling up fast. An unmarked envelope arrived. Inside, a printout of Jasmine's face with a red X over it. No return address. No note. Capitol Police logged it. Another file in a growing list. Still, she didn't speak about it publicly. He wants me to explode. He wants to rattle me, she told her team. We're not giving him that. They believed her, but even her staff was feeling the pressure. Olivia, a 26-year-old scheduler, asked to work from home after receiving a voicemail that mentioned her by name. Jasmine approved it instantly. This wasn't politics anymore, this was targeted, personal, and dangerous. By Friday, Jasmine's office felt more like a crisis response center. Sticky notes were taped next to every phone, green for safe numbers, red for Capitol Police alerts. Julian, her exhausted comms director, hadn't slept in 2 days. Olivia had returned, now wearing a portable panic alarm clipped to her waistband. Threats weren't slowing down, they were escalating. First, vague hate. Then, details. Someone mentioned the street her mother lived on. Another email described Jasmine's outfit from her last town hall, down to the color of her shoes. It wasn't harassment anymore. It was surveillance. Julian walked into her office holding a printed message, "Keep running your mouth. See what happens." Attached was a photo, Jasmine walking into a coffee shop, the morning after the hearing. Clearly taken from across the street. She stared at it for a long time. "Logged?" she asked quietly. "Already sent to Capitol Police and the Bureau?" Julian nodded. He hesitated. One of Jasmine Crockett's interns, barely 3 weeks into the job, called her parents in Wisconsin. She told them she didn't feel safe anymore. The worst of it hadn't even made the news yet. Jasmine had intentionally kept it quiet, knowing full well that media coverage of threats often invites more of them, not fewer. But that didn't stop whispers from reaching her district. People in Dallas were texting her office. "Is it true someone followed her? Should we be worried?" One message came from Pastor DeMarcus Hayes, an old family friend. "Do I need to get some men together to stand outside your office?" Jasmine replied, "Not yet. But keep your boots laced." Her mother, however, wasn't taking any chances. She was growing more anxious by the hour. "I'm serious, Jasmine," she said during a late-night call. "You need to think about your life. These people are crazy." "I know, Mama. Believe me, I know. Promise me you're not walking around alone. I've got security. And tell Olivia not to be shy about using that little alarm." Jasmine smiled gently. "She's holding it right now." But the smile didn't last, because deep down, Jasmine understood, this wasn't just about her anymore. Every threat made her the target, but her team caught the fallout. And it was getting harder and harder to pretend this was business as usual. The next day, while reviewing lawsuit drafts, Shauna Edmonds looked up from the documents. "Have you considered going public with the threats?" "No," Jasmine replied flatly. "If I say it, it becomes the story. And that pulls the spotlight off what he did. It could strengthen the case. I'm not here to build sympathy. I'm here to prove defamation." "That's it." Shauna nodded, slowly. "You're playing this like a trial. I'm playing it like I've got one shot to set this straight." Still, privately, Jasmine was worried. Not about losing in court, she had no doubts about the strength of her case. But she was worried about what it was costing her staff, their peace of mind, their sense of security. Even inside a government building that afternoon, she called an all-hands meeting. "It's been a rough week," she began, standing at the center of the room. "And I know it's scary. I know some of you are exhausted. If you need time, take it. If you need someone to talk to, we'll cover it. But I also need you to know, none of this is in vain. We're not just pushing back. We're drawing a line. And I won't let fear define this moment." There was no applause. No high fives. Just quiet resolve, and that's when it became clear, Jasmine wasn't backing down. Not in the chamber. Not in the press. Not even with her safety on the line, but while she held the line, Mike Johnson was about to make a misstep he wouldn't be able to walk away from. By Sunday, any seasoned politician would have strategized a quiet step back. A statement, a pivot, a waited-out approach, but not Johnson. He went on Fox Morning News with Rick Purnell instead. Friendly couch. Cozy lighting. Still, live. "Speaker Johnson," Rick began, "let's talk about the Crockett moment. You've caught some heat this week. Any regrets?" Johnson smirked. Not smiled, smirked. None, he said. People don't like hearing the truth when it makes them uncomfortable. And I think it's fair to ask questions when a member of Congress takes campaign money from groups that aren't exactly homegrown. Rick raised an eyebrow. Are you saying Representative Crockett broke the law? Johnson leaned in slightly. I'm saying if it looks like smoke, maybe someone ought to check for fire. He didn't just repeat the accusation, he escalated it. National TV. No evidence. No sourcing. Just innuendo wrapped in confidence. Within minutes, that 5-minute segment was clipped and reposted. This time, it wasn't just progressives watching. Even moderate conservatives were raising eyebrows. There's political theater, then there's playing with fire. And Johnson had blurred the line. Back in D.C., Jasmine's phone buzzed twice during her Sunday coffee. One from Shauna. One from Julian. Same message, he just gave us everything we need. Here's what Johnson didn't seem to understand. Statements made during congressional hearings are protected under legislative immunity. But media interviews? Campaign events? Podcasts, those are fair game. Now, with 2 separate public statements repeating the same false claim, Jasmine didn't just have a pattern, she had proof of willful repetition. Later that day, she met with Shauna and a second attorney, Devonte Hill, a federal litigator out of Austin. They laid out the case like a battlefield map. This isn't just defamation, Devonte said. This is malice. He made the accusation, caught blowback, and then said it again. Shauna added, he's not just misinformed. He's weaponizing it. They had everything, transcripts, screenshots, video clips, timestamps, context. What they were building wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a legal offensive, and they had one goal, get it in front of a federal judge. But in Johnson's camp, the tone was smug. One anonymous staffer told Politico, he thinks she's bluffing. She won't risk dragging this out in court. They were wrong, she wasn't bluffing. And she wasn't alone. 2 days later, an open letter started circulating on social media, signed by 34 former attorneys, judges, and government ethics watchdogs. It demanded that Speaker Johnson either provide evidence or issue a formal apology. Among the signers was Judge Alphonse Briggs of Missouri, a conservative who almost never weighed in on politics. He wrote, the deliberate use of public platforms to smear a sitting member of Congress without evidence is not just dangerous to Jasmine Crockett, it's dangerous to democratic accountability. Still, Johnson didn't budge. That Tuesday, during a short Capitol Hill press scrum, a reporter asked him if he was worried about legal consequences. Johnson shrugged. People sue over all kinds of things. Doesn't mean they're right. That soundbite made the front page of USA Today. Jasmine's team clipped it, filed it, and marked it under a growing tab in their folder, reckless disregard. Privately, Jasmine stayed composed. But those closest to her could see the strain. She wasn't sleeping much, and Mike Johnson was about to learn what happens when you mistake calm for weakness. Her mornings began with legal calls. Her nights ended with texts from her mother. Breathe, baby, her mom reminded her one night. You're doing the right thing. I know, Jasmine whispered. But I'm tired of people thinking we won't fight back. This wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about pushing back against a culture that treated public service, especially for women like her, as an open invitation for public humiliation. It was about proving that a black woman could stand her ground without raising her voice, and still command respect. By Wednesday, Jasmine was ready, the paperwork was done. Her legal team was aligned. They were just waiting for the right moment to file. Let him keep talking, she told Julian. Every word builds our case. She didn't have to wait long. The next morning, the lawsuit was filed. Thursday dawned gray and heavy over Washington, D.C., but inside the U.S. District Court, the energy was electric. At 8:03 a.m., a courier from Crockett's legal team delivered a sealed envelope to the clerk's office, more than 60 pages of legal firepower. Crockett v. Johnson. To 8:09 a.m., the press release went live. No cameras. No fanfare. Just a single, pointed statement. This morning, Representative Jasmine Crockett filed a defamation suit against Speaker Mike Johnson for knowingly spreading false, malicious statements that have caused significant personal and professional harm. Public service does not mean public slander. Within 30 minutes, it was everywhere. CNN, Crockett strikes back, $100 million lawsuit filed against Speaker Johnson. NPR, Representative Jasmine Crockett sues Speaker Johnson over false broadcast claims. Even the Wall Street Journal ran it front and center before noon, but the headlines were only the beginning. The lawsuit itself hit hard. Count 1, defamation per se. Johnson had accused her of criminal conduct without a shred of proof. Count 2, false light. He painted a deliberately misleading portrait of her to damage her reputation. Count 3, intentional infliction of emotional distress, documented threats, online harassment, and staff targeting stemming from his smear campaign. The filing included a detailed timeline, transcripts, screenshots, campaign finance analysis. Experts had verified every dollar in her reports, above board, fully disclosed. They weren't just asking for a retraction, they were demanding $100 million in damages. That number made headlines on purpose, not because her team expected to collect it, but because it made a statement. Johnson had misused the weight of his platform on national television. Jasmine was answering with the full weight of federal law. Back in her office, there were no cheers. No applause. Just quiet fatigue. Shauna sat at the end of the table, scrolling news alerts. He's got 2 options, she said. Fight it, or settle. Jasmine didn't respond right away. She was rereading the final page of the suit. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like survival. Dennis, her policy advisor, leaned in the doorway. What if he spins this as censorship? Free speech? He can try, Jasmine said. But this wasn't a speech on the House floor. He said it on national TV. The First Amendment protects speech, not lies. Julian added from his desk. He's probably in a back office right now calling every lawyer he knows. By mid-afternoon, some conservative columnists came rushing to Johnson's defense. One called the lawsuit a threat to political discourse. Another dismissed it as a media stunt. But not everyone bought it. Former GOP Senator Glenn Rolson stunned viewers on PBS when he said, "I don't agree with Crockett's politics, but she has a case. You don't get to accuse someone of a crime on live TV and walk away like it's nothing." Even inside Johnson's own camp, the mood shifted. A leak from his comms team revealed that multiple staffers had urged him, before the lawsuit was filed, to issue a quiet apology. Yet he refused, and now, he was dealing with the consequences. Back in Dallas, local leaders rallied around Jasmine. A coalition of pastors and community organizers held a press conference outside her district office. "We're proud of her," one said. "And we've got her back." Jasmine watched it quietly on her laptop. Minutes later, her mother called her, voice thick with emotion. "I saw it," she said. "They're with you, Jasmine. They know you're not just fighting for yourself." That night, Jasmine sat alone in her apartment. No legal briefs. No late meetings. Just silence, and the steady hum of her refrigerator. She thought about all the women she'd seen pushed out of spaces they belonged in, about the sideways glances in courtrooms, about the tone shift when she walked into a room and people realized she wasn't just smart, she was prepared, and now, here she was. Not just fighting back, but holding someone powerful accountable. On her terms. But then something happened that even she didn't expect. The country started paying attention. By Friday morning, the lawsuit wasn't just national news. It was everywhere. Morning shows opened with it. Podcasts dissected it. YouTubers replayed the hearing like it was a courtroom thriller, and the response wasn't cleanly divided along party lines. There was something about this story, its clarity, her composure, the stakes, that broke through the usual noise. People were tired of politics that felt like a free-for-all. Tired of watching public figures dodge accountability. This time, a line had been crossed, and the public noticed. Online, hashtags surged, hashtag I stand with Jasmine, hashtag defend truth. People who had never heard of her days ago were watching her speeches, reading her casework, Digging into her courtroom history, she wasn't just a face at a microphone anymore, she was a symbol of restraint and resistance, in equal measure. A high school government teacher in Arizona showed the lawsuit to her class. Point 1. Student raised his hand. Can regular people do this too? Like sue someone for lying about you online? That question echoed across the country. This wasn't just about Jasmine anymore. It was about consequences. Comedians mentioned her in stand-up sets. Pastors worked her story into Sunday sermons. On a sports radio show in Ohio, one host said casually, "Honestly, I wish I had the kind of grace Jasmine Crockett showed. She could have snapped, and nobody would have blamed her." Of course, not all of it was positive. Trolls still flooded her mentions, accusing her of playing the race card or trying to silence free speech. But their voices were fading against the tidal wave of support. Point 1 moment stood out and went viral. A shaky, homemade video from a retired veteran named Raymond Trask. "I served this country because I believed truth mattered," the veteran said in the video, his voice steady. "I don't vote the same way Jasmine Crockett does. But when I saw that clip, then saw what she did next, that's integrity. And if that's not worth standing up for, I don't know what is." The video hit over 2 million views in under 24 hours. Meanwhile, Johnson's team was scrambling. Reporters swarmed his staff, pressing for comment. All they issued was a short, clipped statement calling the lawsuit baseless and a distraction from more important issues. But even that sounded deflated. No more cocky soundbites, no TV blitz. Behind closed doors, Johnson was livid. He hadn't expected the blowback. He expected a political scuffle, not a national reckoning. Even members of his own party began to break ranks. Republic. Colleen Burdick, a conservative from Oklahoma, spoke plainly during a radio interview. "Look, disagreement is part of our job. But if you accuse someone of criminal behavior on national television, you better have proof. Period." The legal world was paying attention. 2 law professors added the case to ethics syllabi. Legal blogs broke it down line by line. Former federal prosecutor Franklin Neely appeared on MSNBC and said flatly, "Crockett's case is solid. Johnson may think this is politics. In court, facts win. Not slogans." Back in Dallas, Crockett's district office was overflowing. Flowers, letters, and even hand-drawn cards from middle school students arrived daily. Olivia, still shaken from the threats the week before, teared up reading one card that simply said, "Thank you for standing up for yourself. I want to be like you when I grow up." But Jasmine didn't let the momentum go to her head. "This isn't my victory," she told her team in private. "Not yet. I haven't won anything. And even if I do, I want people to remember what this was really about. It was never about revenge. It was about precedent. About not allowing defamation to become a routine tool in public discourse." That evening, she gathered her staff for a closed-door roundtable. "We didn't ask for this fight," she told them, "but now that we're in it, we're going to handle it the way we always do, with facts, with discipline, and without stooping. No cheers. No fist bumps. Just quiet, steady nods. Everyone in the room understood they were part of something larger than just one case, but a new test was ahead, the courtroom. A space where politics lost its shield, and only evidence spoke. In a modest office just blocks from the Capitol, Jasmine sat at the head of a long oak table. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly. Her phone lay face down. A few key staffers remained, finishing cold coffee and reviewing prep notes. This wasn't strategy. It wasn't planning. It was a pause. "You ready for the circus tomorrow?" Julian asked, leaning against the windowsill. Jasmine looked up. "The circus is already here. We're just walking into the tent." Devante smirked behind his laptop. Shauna had stepped out to coordinate with the paralegal team prepping exhibits for court. There'd be no cameras allowed, but the stakes were sky high. The courthouse would be full. Press outside. Legal observers inside. Protesters, too, some with signs bearing her name. Others calling her a threat to free speech. Inside that quiet room, Jasmine wasn't thinking about the noise. She was thinking about what it would mean if none of it worked. What if I win, she said, and it changes nothing? What if people still act like the truth is optional? Devante shut his laptop and looked at her. Then at least we put it on record. At least we made it harder for the next person to lie without consequence. Jasmine nodded. But her jaw tensed that night. Long after everyone else had gone home, only Shauna remained as she sat across from Jasmine and finally asked what no one else would. You ever think about walking away? Jasmine didn't answer right away. She traced the rim of her coffee mug. Sometimes, she said quietly. But I remember why I'm here. Shauna leaned forward. Why is that, today? Jasmine looked her straight in the eye. Because too many people still believe that women like me won't fight back. That we'll absorb the hit, shake it off, carry on. This lawsuit, it's not just for me. It's for the 26-year-old woman in her first public job who thinks she has to tolerate being disrespected to keep it. For the aide who's mistaken for the intern every time she speaks. For every young black girl watching how I react and deciding if she's allowed to hold power one day. Shauna exhaled through her nose. You know this won't fix everything, right? I'm not here to fix everything, Jasmine said. Just to draw the damn line. Back in Dallas, her mother couldn't sleep. She called twice that night. Jasmine missed both calls but played the voicemails after midnight. Baby, I know you're strong. I just want you to be safe tomorrow. Don't carry all this alone. She saved the messages without replying. She'd talk to her in the morning. Her mother was right, Jasmine was carrying more than a case. She had become a proxy for every woman who had been dismissed, diminished, or dragged without merit. That night, she stepped onto her balcony. The city buzzed below, sirens, traffic, blinking lights. She didn't look down. She looked up, at the stillness of the sky. For one moment, she let herself breathe. Tomorrow would be about law, testimony, and facts, but tonight was about remembering the people she was doing this for. The ones who'd never step foot in that courtroom, but who would live with the outcome of what happened inside it. She whispered into the night, to no one but herself, let the truth speak louder. Then she stepped back inside, shut the balcony door, and sat down to review her statement one last time, because once those courthouse doors opened, no one could predict how quickly the tide would turn, and by 7 a.m., the line outside the federal courthouse was already beginning to form. On Constitution Avenue, the line had already begun to curl around the block. A quiet crowd gathered in the morning haze, journalists, activists, Hill staffers, curious locals. Most wouldn't get in. The courtroom had limited seating, and press and legal observers had claimed their spots early. But still, they came. Some carried handmade signs. Others just wanted to bear witness. Inside, Jasmine Crockett sat in the front row beside her attorneys. Calm. Composed. No phone. No notes. Just presence. She wore a navy blue suit, hair tied back, expression unreadable. Her team surrounded her, legal pads open, files arranged like a chessboard, each page a move, each fact a piece in play. Across the aisle, Speaker Mike Johnson arrived 20 minutes late. His entrance drew a ripple of hushed murmurs, the kind reserved for someone walking in with the wrong kind of confidence. Under the courtroom lights, he looked pale. Less polished than his usual appearances. One of his aides leaned down to whisper. He nodded but kept his eyes fixed on the floor. At 9:01 a.m., the bailiff called the courtroom to order. Judge Carla Renix entered with a purposeful stride, glasses low on her nose. She was known for her strict courtroom control and zero patience for political theater. Let's get to it, she said briskly. Counsel, approach. This was a hearing, not a trial. But the stakes were real. Johnson's lawyers had filed a motion to dismiss, claiming the lawsuit was a waste of judicial resources, arguing his statements were protected political commentary. Jasmine's team was ready. Devante Hill stood and began evenly, Your Honor, this is not about policy disagreement. This is about public defamation, targeted, repeated, and provably harmful. My client was accused of criminal behavior on national television, without evidence. And those accusations were broadcast again across multiple platforms. He laid out a meticulous timeline, distinguishing protected congressional speech from public media commentary. Then came the threats, the fallout, tied directly to Johnson's words and their delivery. Judge Renix didn't interrupt. She took notes but didn't look up. When the defense spoke, their lead attorney Martin Drake stumbled almost immediately. Mr. Johnson was speaking in broad terms. He never directly accused, Devontae stood. With respect, Your Honor, the record shows otherwise. The speaker used terms like unethical, questionable funding, and repeated those claims in a post-hearing interview. None of this falls under legislative privilege. The judge looked over her glasses. Mr. Drake, are you prepared to provide documentation supporting your client's televised claims? Drake hesitated. We're still reviewing the source material, Your Honor. Then I suggest you expedite that review, she said, flatly. Because baseless accusation in a public forum carries consequences. Jasmine didn't flinch. 2 rows back, Julian clenched his fist beneath the table. The line had landed, the court recessed for 10 minutes. Outside, reporters rushed to update live blogs. One courtroom sketch had already leaked online, Johnson looking down, Jasmine staring forward, hands calmly folded. When court resumed, the tone had shifted. The defense tried to recast Johnson's comments as vague hypotheticals, but it was too late. They had no donor list. No proof. No paper trail. The judge saw through it. By the end of the hearing, Judge Renix denied the motion to dismiss. She set a tentative timeline for discovery and evidentiary hearings, 30 days for both sides to produce documentation. As cameras gathered outside, Jasmine exited quietly through a side door with her attorneys. No statement. No headline moment. Just a calm walk to the SUV, but the moment traveled without her. Clips of Judge Renix's statement flooded the internet. The phrase, baseless accusation in a public forum carries consequences, became a meme, a rallying cry, a headline. Cable shows began to ask real questions. Would Johnson settle? Could this set new precedent for media accountability? Across classrooms, legal forums, even barbershops, people were having the same conversation. What happens next? If she wins, that night, Jasmine went home, pulled off her earrings, kicked off her shoes, and sat in silence. No celebration. No release. Because the real battle wasn't over, but something had changed. By Monday morning, the headlines had shifted from political feud to something heavier. News anchors used words like precedent and reckoning. Commentators from both sides of the aisle agreed. The rules were shifting. The idea that a lie, repeated loudly enough, might no longer go unpunished. That hit different, and for Jasmine, it was never about Mike Johnson anymore. She knew the legal fight could take months, even years. Court wasn't television. It wasn't built for drama. It was built for documentation, for discipline. That was the point. She hadn't let it slide. That afternoon, standing in her Dallas district office, she finally spoke. No podium. No theatrics. Just a calm, steady voice. I've taken an oath twice, to protect the Constitution. Once as an attorney. Once as a representative of the people. But nowhere in that oath does it say I must absorb lies without recourse. Accountability is not a partisan issue. It's a moral one. Behind her, Olivia stood by the door, arms folded, this time not in worry, but pride. Julian was in the back, nodding slowly, phone in hand. Later, in a local radio interview, Jasmine opened up a little more. Most days in Congress are frustrating. People don't see that. You just put your head down and do the work. But then one day, someone lies about you on national TV, and you have to choose, keep swallowing it, or say enough. When asked what she hoped to gain beyond damages or apology, she paused before answering, I hope it reminds people that words carry weight. Especially when you wear the title of speaker. Especially on camera. Especially when you know exactly what you're doing. That was it. No grand finale. Just clarity. The lawsuit moved forward. Depositions were being scheduled. Johnson's legal team had gone quiet. Rumors of private settlement talks swirled. Jasmine didn't care. She had already claimed something more valuable than headlines, moral ground, her early silence. That was strategy. Her refusal to lash out? That was discipline. The lawsuit itself? That was the message, clear, factual, and undeniable. By the following week, other lawmakers were referencing the case. A senator from Ohio warned during a hearing, "We all saw what happened to Representative Crockett. Let's be careful with our words before someone else learns the hard way." In classrooms, students wrote essays on free speech and accountability. In churches, she was named in sermons as an example of grace under fire. In homes, across the country, people remembered power doesn't protect you from harm, but it can be used to respond with integrity. That was where the story landed. Not an illegal win, but a cultural one. A reminder that strength doesn't have to be loud. That dignity isn't weakness. That lawsuits aren't just weapons, they're lines in the sand. Through it all, Jasmine kept showing up, committee meetings, hallway conversations, late night calls, not because the noise had faded, but because she had chosen not to be defined by it. That Sunday evening, in a quiet call with her mother, they spoke like they used to. No court talk. No drama. "Baby, when this is over, what do you want to do?" her mother asked. Jasmine thought for a moment. "I want to rest," she said. "But more than that, I want young girls watching to know. You can stand up for yourself without yelling. You can win with words. And when they lie about you, you don't have to just take it. You can push back the right way." Her mother was quiet for a beat. Then said softly, "I think you already taught them that." That night, Jasmine sat on her balcony again. Same view. Same soft wind. But something in her felt lighter. The fight wasn't over. But the fear had faded, replaced by something steadier than anger, conviction. And in that stillness, one truth rang clear.